There we go. All right, everybody. Today is October 23rd, 2017. It is currently 5:04, and we are going to start with the Rick Sexton, the best 7 minutes of gun control speech. And then we'll have Ed showing up.
And now we must turn to the issue of gun violence in America today, because the latest mass shootings in Aurora, Colorado, and Newtown, Connecticut leave us all, liberal and conservative, Republican and Democrat, appalled and disgusted at the carnage. Now, some people, and that includes many of you in this room tonight, want to place the blame for this horror on things like 30-round magazines or semi-automatic rifles. We want to blame something, anything that we can control. But what we really want to ban is violence and murder and insanity. Now, we don't talk about that, though, because deep in our hearts, each of us knows that violence and murder and insanity are built into the human condition and likely always will be. You know, there are two kinds of animals in this world, predators and prey. No one watches a leopard chase down a gazelle and denies that the gazelle has a right to use its hooves and horns to protect itself from the predator. But there are people in this room tonight and all across the country who would deny that same right to self-defense to other human beings. Such people seem to think that the way to stop the leopard is to cut the horns off of the gazelle, that by somehow making it easier for the predator will simply go away. My friends, this is insane. When you make it easier for the predator, you get more predators. So let's start with the so-called assault weapons, more properly known as semi-automatic rifles. In 2011, the total firearm murders came to 8,583, according to the FBI. Now, during that time, the total murders committed by rifles, all rifles, not just semi-automatic rifles, were 323. That's 3% of all murders. Hammers and clubs kill half again as many people as rifles. Hands and feet murder twice as many. And knives kill 5 times more Americans than all rifles combined. Preventable medical errors kill about 98,000 people per year. Medical malpractice kills more than 12 times as many people as are murdered in the U.S. each year. That's more than 300 times the number killed by all rifles, not just the so-called assault rifles. And yet, no one talks about limits on hammers or knives or doctors or hospitals. No one does that because the good we perceive from hammers and knives and doctors far outweigh their perceived harm. And yet, studies show that firearms prevent anywhere from 800,000 to over 2 million violent crimes every year. The lowest estimate means that 100 times more violent crimes were prevented with firearms than the total murders committed with firearms. That's 100 times as many. Now, in October of 2007, Amanda Collins was walking to her car after a night class at the University of Nevada at Reno. Amanda had a concealed carry permit for her 9mm Glock that she carried for self-defense. Unfortunately for Amanda, UNR is, like most college campuses, a gun-free zone. So, like the law-abiding citizen that she is, she did not have her gun with her in this gun-free zone when she was attacked by James Bila. Bila raped her on the UNR campus less than 300 yards from the campus police office. He then walked away, and a few months later, this human predator went on to murder 19-year-old Breonna Dennison. Amanda Collins went on to say, quote, "I know, having been the first victim, that Breonna Dennison would still be alive had I been able to defend myself that night," unquote. Therefore, I am directing the virtual Attorney General to aggressively challenge any gun control laws that violate Amanda Collins' right not to be raped and Breonna Dennison's right not to be murdered. You're not forced to abandon your First Amendment right when you enter Chicago or New York, or your Fifth Amendment rights when you walk onto a college campus. As virtual president, I will veto on the spot without hesitation, but with a great deal of pleasure, any and all attempts to destroy any of the Bill of Rights of the Constitution of the United States of America. Because when it's all said and done, the Second Amendment to the Constitution is not there to protect us against criminals, and the people calling for gun control know this. That's why they want gun control instead of crime control. That's why they want laws that, at the stroke of a pen, turn law-abiding citizens into criminals. The Second Amendment is there to protect the American people from tyranny. The Second Amendment is there to protect the American people from politicians. The Second Amendment is there to protect the American people from us. Now, some politicians claim America deserves a vote on this issue. Okay, let's have a vote. Those of you advocating infringement on the right of the people to keep and bear arms need to go to the American people with the 28th Amendment, which would simply read, the Second Amendment to the Constitution is hereby repealed. That would, for the first time, give you the legal authority to do what you have been doing and what you are trying to do now in direct violation of your oath of office to defend the entire Constitution of the United States, not just the parts you happen to approve of. So go ahead, go to the American people and tell them that ultimate power is no longer to be vested in the people who can't be trusted with that power according to you. Tell them only the government can have that power now. You go out there and try to convince the people of the 38 states that you're going to need to get that amendment passed to agree with your opinion of them versus their opinion of you. I dare you. 12 million unarmed men, women, and children were unable to resist being murdered by their own National Socialist government in Germany. Perhaps 50 million unarmed men, women, and children were murdered by their own Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. 50 million Chinese murdered by their own government under Mao, who also disarmed his people. And in Cuba, and in Vietnam, and in the killing fields of Cambodia. Now you say that can't happen here? You say we're protected? By what? By the Constitution that you're in the process of destroying? You are in violation of your oaths of office by so much as introducing this legislation, let alone passing it. My fellow Americans, the previous inhabitants of this chamber watched as 100 million people were murdered after being disarmed by their own governments. Every single one of those men, women, and children were as real and precious and irreplaceable as the children at Newtown. And I tell you here and now that I will be damned if I will let that happen to the American people.
We're listening to the disclaimers by Edward Johnston. Thank you for joining us, and Ed, take it away.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening in the education process. The whole thing about this is education of one another compared to others that are out for personal and financial gain. We're not asking for anything. We will be asking in time here eventually. People are willing to help out with, some of the, electricity costs or basic costs. We're not asking for your money. We'll just post stuff up so that way you could directly pay the corporation. We don't want your money, but, it does help to pay off those type of bills. But, and it's sad we're getting to that point because I'm disabled and my finances are hit a peak, and I pay for everything out of my own pocket being disabled, so it's just one of those circumstances. But anyhow, I'm not whining, complaining, or begging, or asking. It's just one of those things that happen in life. It's getting so that way we end up putting people back on the path of right, and so tonight we're going to be getting into bloodline. I've had some interesting message conversations back and forth with people trying to tell me they've got their rules and regulations they're trying to do in this country, and they have their tribal laws as well. But see, the thing is that as I keep asking people and they keep sending me videos and stuff, and I keep telling them I want to see factual proof it's working in the courthouse and the de facto bullshit courthouse of England. I don't want to hear about your Bible lies. Because and I'm going to do a talk show on the Bible coming up here, on the real truth about the Bible and the structure of false belief. Because the Constitution ensures your right of protection from religion, because if you're going to do religion, you have no rights, period. The Bible don't give you, the book of the Bible don't give you rights. God don't give you rights, and if you actually read the Bible, the structure of the Bible, God is the King or Queen of England, or that country, of that Bible structure where it came from. That's exactly true. You know, I ask people really to do research, read this stuff. You know, quit getting lost in translations like attorneys uses and judges uses. You know, if you ever been hunting and fishing, you know what the water does when you're fishing. If you're hunting, you know what the woods do when you're tracking a deer, an elk, or a bear, or a bird. Been there, done it, know it. I had to learn. You know, growing up in a concrete jungle myself and then going to the woods, I had to go out and learn stuff. And a lot of it, I had to go be self-taught. I had to go sit there and park my butt down and listen around me. You know, and that is the point, that people do not comprehend the facts of this world. And that's where the bloodline is so important in the 48 states. Remember, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, they are states of the corporation. They are not part of the original contract states with the British government of the Civil War, or prior to that when the British government was making a contract with each of the 48 states that actually has a treaty and contract with the British government of your Bible, the King James Bible of the Vatican. Fact. Remember, all those people that came over from England and all the contracts with the British government are through the Vatican and the King James Bible. Your forefathers, our forefathers, wrote, and I can say our forefathers, wrote in it that we are to have freedom of religion, and I always thought I should say from, but of religion. And the thing why it says that is that if we went to Christianity or Roman Catholic or Muslim or Judaism or whatever religion you want to think about, religion is mental control, mind control. People say, oh, Christianity is not. Yes, it is, folks. I hate to tell you. It's all mind control. Because you're sitting there and you're going by opinions. You're not going by facts. Now, when you go deer hunting or elk hunting or bird hunting and you're actually in the woods hunting, and I mean physically out there hunting, you get to know what the truth of hunting is. You get to know what it is to stalk your meat. And if you don't get it, and that's vegetables too. And if you don't get your vegetables, you perish. That's a fact. That's a reality. That's not a guesstimate. And see, if people would actually sit there and comprehend these things, and I get this question dealing with people all the time, well, what the heck is a bloodline? Why does the bloodline matter? Well, the bloodline matters because it takes a man and a woman, the Great Spirit and Mother Earth. Without the Great Spirit, Mother Earth, there's no child. Sorry, I cannot believe, and I cannot put myself in the mental point of view that says, oh my God, Mary was a virgin, and next thing you know, poof, she got pregnant. You know, that's like saying that, poof, all right, we all got $1 million in our bank account right now today. Poof, hey, fantasy. Okay? I don't deal with fantasy. That's like the Women's Crisis Creation Centers do this, because they're a center that goes out to create crisis for their structure for financial gain, and most of them are run by gays and lesbians, which I do not have an issue with. I do have an issue with the mentality of gay and lesbian people because they don't know what the heck a bloodline is. Okay? And then they want to have children. Well, either you're having children, it makes sure it's your bloodline. You can't go steal somebody else's child and use the state corporation to steal their bloodline. That happens all the time. I've witnessed this in the state of Oregon for 25 years. It happens all the time where people steal somebody else's bloodline. And then you want to claim that bloodline is your bloodline. It's not. You didn't give birth to it. You didn't create it. You are not the living force that made it happen. That is the point. You're not the living force. And once you become the living force behind it, then you know what it feels like to have blood, and you know what it's like to have life. You live life, but most people that live life today has no concept of life because they don't have a bloodline to share that bloodline and that life. When you hold that baby in your hands, in your arms, and you realize that that's your bloodline, you created it. People say, well, God created it. Okay, let's say God created it, or the Great Spirit, as I call it, or the Creator. I don't like using the word God too much because God goes back to even the terms with, Germany. And if you read the German structure of their God, it's Satanism. And if you actually read King James Bible itself, it actually states in the Bible that Jesus is Satan. Read the Bible sometime and read the passages. You can type it in on the internet that Pope says that Jesus is the devil or Satan. The Pope says it. Even Pope Benedict, before supposedly he resigned, was always talking about the structure of Satanism. Is like in 2012, Pope Benedict went on national world news and told us, if you didn't go to church on Sunday, you were condemned by Jesus. That's his words. He said that. You know, if you didn't go to church and be mind controlled and do what we tell you, and that goes to Romans 13.2, that says that you shall do what Caesar says, and if you don't do what Caesar says, you shall be executed. Read it. It's in your Bible. People say, oh no, and then they have these other verses. I've talked to hundreds of people over the years, and it has this verse, it has that verse, and I said, wait a minute. Now you're doing an argument like an attorney, a lawyer, or a judge will do trying to win a court case. So in other words, it's trying to win your mind over so that way you can sit there and make a choice, not a decision. Choices have no responsibility. Decisions do. So you're making a choice instead of a decision, so that way you want to use something that benefits you personally, financially, and what makes you look good in the community instead of dealing with reality. These are things that are very frustrating to the people. And eventually I'll be setting up to go live on Facebook on this as we do the other. I'll be doing something on that one myself on this, and we'll be getting that discussed here pretty soon. But when it comes to your bloodline, if you don't protect the bloodline of this soil, the Constitution ensures your rights. I like to say it gives you your rights, and people correct me all the time on that, and I don't have a problem being corrected. A man is supposed to be a man, not a little boy. But I like to say all the time that the Constitution gives you rights, because to me it gives you rights, even though it ensures your rights. It ensures your rights that you have the right of your religion, not my religion, not the neighbor's religion, not the religion down the street or somebody else's religion. That is the key point right there. Okay, so that way you have the rights on that religious point of view. And people say, well, that gives me rights. Okay, I get you on the point. It does give you rights. We know that it gives you rights or privileges if you're an immigrant. And that is the one thing of knowing the truth of the Constitution compared to what the status quo is of administrative rules. People don't know what administrative rules really are. Well, if you walk into your house, don't you have rules in your house? You know, don't piss in the corner. Don't throw your chewing gum on the floor. You know, don't do this or that in my house. You know, show respect. You know, some men and women have their own designated chair in the house, and somebody goes in and sits in that chair, they get a little upset. And that could be another way of protecting your bloodline, too, of making your status known, claiming your area. And that's the one thing that people do not realize when you're claiming your bloodline in your area. And I mean your bloodline. When you have a child, okay, that child takes a man and a woman to have a child, not a test tube, because a test tube ain't a child. That's imaginary. Now we're living in the cloning age that actually they were cloning back in 1900s itself, successfully cloning. People say, "Oh no, they didn't have that until recently." No, they were doing this 100 years ago. Actually, successfully 100 years ago. Do your research. It was done. The Germans were really known for doing that. That's why they were doing all their testing on what they call the Jews. It's like today with the bloodline. VHS will come in and steal your children. That's your bloodline. People say, "Oh, there's nothing I can do." File and own your bloodline. You have to file and own ownership of it. If you don't claim the owner of the bloodline of your child, the state does have a right to steal it because you register your kids with the state, your bloodline. You give them authority when you go to the doctor's office. And you sign the paperwork when the doctor gives you that paperwork, or the clerk at that paperwork gives you that paperwork to do that. So when you get that paperwork to do that stuff, it's like, do you sit there and mark things out? Do you sit there and write in that I'm the owner of me and my lawful bloodline? Even put in Title 8, Title 8, what is that? Title 42, Section 8.8E, that the bottom line comes down to is I'm the owner of my bloodline. That means that your Social Security number cannot be used in any other fashion. Have you filed? And everybody says, "Oh, don't claim your Social Security number. It's a British government structure," which it is in a contract. But also, too, has been proven in the Supreme Court that Social Security was set up and protected by the Supreme Court, saying it's a private contract. It's not a government agency. Clinton was the one who turned it into an agency when he signed over Social Security and assets over to the Queen of England. That's why I'm so glad Hillary didn't get elected and got put on. She was going to sign this country and your bloodline over the Queen of England. Look at your birth certificate. They put your soul print on it. Why do you think they call it a soul? Your foot, Put your soul print on, your thumbprint on it, so that way they can withdraw all your money because you're giving them authorization to do that off of your stocks and bonds under House Resolution 192. So you gave them your seal. You didn't have to sign for it. Remember, your thumbprint, as most people that we know, that's your seal. And so you're giving your soul and your thumbprint, your legal rights for somebody else to take your assets from you by filing with the state. And that's how they steal your bloodline. Now, we do have a template up that it's a guidelines. I don't like to, because I'm no attorney, no lawyer. I'm not out there trying to take somebody's case to court. You're supposed to be an adult. We don't mind helping people out collectively, collectively doing these things. We don't mind doing that. But the bottom line comes out to is that you have to be the responsible and respectful adult. If you are not the responsible, respectful adult, hey, you're doing a choice. The choice is, oh, I could go get drunk and do anything I want, and then I don't have to pay for it. I just have to pay the church for my sins. That's the one thing that disturbs me about the church. Pay the church for your sins. Like, a conversation I had on email a couple of days with a lady saying on the bloodline, dealing with, well, we came and conquered this soil, and so we took it from the Indians, so the Indians have no rights. Well, your ancestry is alive now. The ancestry of the natives can take that land back from you. You destroyed yourself on it, so, hey, sorry, we're doing it. We're protecting our bloodline. Remember, our bloodline is first. If you are an immigrant, you have no rights. You have privileges. Read the Constitution. Read the Immigration Act. And there's a couple interesting immigration acts that have popped up on the internet, going back to structure. But if you actually read it, it says nationals and citizens, and if you actually know the term of national or citizen, that means you are a British subject. You are not an American. You are not a bloodline American. You have no rights. You are a British subject under those quotations. When you use those quotations, you lose your rights. If a cop or a public servant asks you if you are a citizen or national, no, I'm not. I'm a native. Or if you are an immigrant, yes, I'm a citizen, but I did not give up my future bloodline rights to you. Knowing how to present yourself and talk these things out. I'm not giving you authority over me. I'm not contracting. I might be, let's say an immigrant is saying, I'm not going to contract with you on that. Maybe I need counsel. You might not need a lawyer. Maybe you need somebody that knows the actual law, and that might not be a lawyer or an attorney, to protect that. Because I don't have a problem, and I support legal immigration, because without the mixing of the blood, we don't have a future. I do not support bringing in foreign holidays and foreign religions and all that to our country. It's like I'm reading how a native girl was suspended for school for speaking her native tongue, the Lakota Indian. So she was speaking that in the classroom, so she got expelled from school for speaking her language on her soil. Well, we have the right of free speech, but the school says, no, you don't. Religious men and women say, no, you don't. I've never met a Christian. I've never met a Mormon. I've never met a Muslim. I've never met a Roman Catholic or anybody else that didn't have put their religion beliefs first, or the fantasy of their religion beliefs first. I like the Constitution to be first, because if you have the Constitution, we're supposed to have equal rights. And that includes men and women. Women have the right to her body. You do not have a right to sit there, and I've dealt with men who have assaulted women. The Bible says I have a right to control this woman. And I beat the shit out of men in my younger years for that crap. Literally. And I was known for that, too. You don't sit there and dictate to somebody what they're doing, and if you pick the wrong woman, that's your fault. You cannot sit there and go tame it like a wild animal that you think that you're going to have control, because when you tame a wild animal, doesn't that wild animal eventually turn on you? And it happens in 90% of the cases. I watch people, even with horses, thought they had them tamed and the horse turned on them. Dog turned on them. Cat turned on them. Remember, under Title 7, 136, Section D, we're all animals. I just don't have, I have a little difficulty with these other religions saying that they want to have internal affairs with animals. Not human animals, other animals, but also, too, the Constitution gives them that right. But I figure once the animal turns and bites their whatever off or attacks them, you have no right killing that animal, because the animal defended itself. So, in other words, that injured man or whatever at this point has to deal with life. The animal spoke. I like natural law, animal law. Man's law is religion law that says you have no rights and you shall pay your pendants to the religion. Exactly what it means. It says that the court system is run by the black robe popes. Well, I do put up flyers on that too. And if you know anything about the black robe popes, the black robe men that are judges, they're black robe popes for their religion. When you travel without a license, you're breaking religion, because you didn't pay the permission to travel on what they call God's soil, Roman Catholic, Christian soil. Yes, I said Christian. It's Christian because Christians believe that. I've talked to thousands of Christians over the years going, well, if you don't pay for a driver's license, you have no right to travel. If you don't pay for a hunting and fishing license, you have no rights to feed yourself. But then they sit there and I said, well, doesn't the Bible says this? Well, that doesn't mean anything. I said, well, how are you supposed to protect your bloodline if you don't have food? Well, you have to pay. And I said, no, you don't. That's the devil telling you that if you want to believe in the devil. I don't believe in either one, because, see, when you die, you're dead. There ain't no other side of the fantasy that we live on, the fantasy and fairy tales. Once you die, you're dead. There is none going over to the other side in this fantasy of some other life, so you can sit there and look at people and you think like in TV when they show these movies that you can imagine looking at people from the other side, but then you can't feel, and then you can't deal with it. Once your body is gone, your soul leaves your body, you're gone. Your life leaves, it left. It doesn't go get reborn into something else. We haven't actually seen actual proof of that. We've seen some similarities that might happen, but let's be realistic in these points of view. You know, I mean, you see similarities that might have been passed through your blood to your child that might have been through another relative, but that was passed through the soul. Like one of my favorite lines is, step out of the movie, watch the production. Step out of the movie, watch the production. You know, that's the one biggest point. Step out of the movie, watch the production. And if we don't do those type of things and pay attention, especially to your bloodline, that means natively or legally. Legal is British law, administrative rules. That's not American law. We do have a contract with the British. I was talking to a gentleman the other day that was calling for a non-profit agency. You know, I always love it when these non-profits call you out for handouts, and I don't like them because most of them are religious too. 90% of them, actually basically all of them, are religious asking for a handout. And the way I look at it, God don't need money. Why do you need money if God don't need it? What are you saying? You're a God? That's the impression that you give to people when you're saying that I need money, I'm a God. You know, because what? On all the movies that you watch and all the structure that goes on, you know, doesn't that give you a religious right, as people would say? It's called a religious privilege when it comes down to it. You have the freedom of religion. And your First Amendment, the freedom of speech, oh yeah, I've argued with many people on the phone with arguments over religion. Oh yeah, that's freedom of speech. We might not agree, but then again, we don't disagree to a point. They have their opinion, I have my opinion, and I'll use it that way, or my beliefs. They have their beliefs. And they have their beliefs in their bloodline. I have mine and my structure of the way I was brought up, the way I stepped out of the movie and really watched the protection of life itself, compared to getting racked up in religion and getting sucked into all this stuff that you don't even know what the truth is. You know, it's like going fishing. Either you have the sense to know how to go catch a fish to feed yourself, or you don't. You know, when you sit there and go fishing, you get to know the waterways. You get to know how to see the water, where the fish are. You get to know how to have a sense to the fish, of how to get the fish. If you sit there in one spot all the time, yeah, you might get fish, but that doesn't happen every time because the fish move. So you have to learn and pay attention to the water, the river, the currents, and figure out where you get the feeling of the fish. Oh, that's right, you get to feel. But see, that's the point. Do you get to feel with life? You're supposed to feel with life. You're supposed to feel with your bloodline when you pass that bloodline down to know what you have and what you don't have. People know that, and there's a lot of gentlemen and women out there who have, gentlemen and women, but, you know, have children they have nothing to do with, okay? They were not brought up to have caring compassion. They weren't taught how to deal with that structure. You can't blame them. That's like people who are raised by the state. For example, the state of Oregon, how they kidnap and rape children and steal children for financial gain. Proven fact. I've proven it myself. Been in a relationship with a couple of women who were products of the state. And you try to teach them to be independent, and oh my God, they can't be independent because they've been so mind conditioned not to be independent. You try to get them to comprehend their bloodline and all this, and it's like, oh no, I'd much rather give it up for a new TV or something like that. That's always me, 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 me. 95% of the women I've met in my entire life are me, 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 me. Literally 95%. I met a couple that weren't that way, but 95% are that way. That's a fact. I've met women that says, oh, you don't know me. You know, you can't say that about me. And then they prove I'm right. Not, 95% of them proved I'm right. I've only had 5% or 1% actually prove I was wrong. So the thing is knowing what your bloodline is. A bloodline is not a test tube. So when you have relations, and I'll use that one for terminology to be, without being too graphic. But when you're in relations and you pass your great spirit onto Mother Earth and you end up having birth. Oh my God, did I say that devil's word? When you gave life to a new life form, or newborn. You didn't give birth because you're not on an ocean and you're not birthing that ship to the ocean. Yes, and that's how they say the baby's been in that bag, in that water sack. So when it comes out, it's burnt now. So you gave it a corporation. I watched a picture on YouTube, Facebook that was going around with this young lady. The caption was, she got a birth control deal in her hand, and she's looking at it, and it says the color blue on it. And it says, "Oh my God, I'm pregnant." And the next line says, "I'm giving birth to the corporation." So that's why if you don't file for your bloodline and claim ownership of your blood, your forefathers, your ancestries, you have no rights. And trust me, these doctors, lawyers, and attorneys, most of them do know this stuff. They do this. Why do you think the cops don't go to these other people's homes and do this stuff to them? Or when they get called in? I mean, come on, look at the crooks, the biggest crooks in history right now who still ain't brought to prison. And everybody goes, how come? How come? Well, there are two reasons, because they filed their rights. And the other reason is because you are at fault for not filing criminal charges for the thefts of what these people have done. People go, "Oh, I have to wait for the government or the state attorney general or this man or that man is going to do this." Folks, it's either you are lawful in this country and prove it. Stand up for the country. Otherwise, shut up. We're getting tired of listening to all these whiners out there. I am. And the ones that are standing up, protecting their bloodline, opening their minds, picking this up and start doing this stuff, we admire you on these things. We want to see that you go further. We want to see your bloodline is protected. Because if your bloodline is not protected, your children and grandchildren don't have rights. Or privileges, at that matter of fact. The other point is setting up your land so that it gets off the tax rolls. We're still working on that so we can do it so there's not a conflict of interest. We have been successful on children that have been born without a birth certificate. They wrote their own birth certificate, created their own family instrument. They couldn't be turned down at the hospital for it because there's no law that says that you have to go by their instrument. Because until 1940, birth certificates were not technically required. Prior to 1940, this is 1940, just a few years ago, 80 years ago, 1940. Prior to that, most people who were born were written into a Bible or into a family document instrument. Read real history. When they started doing birth certificates in the 1883, I think it was when they really started issuing 1887 under the 14th Amendment. People say the 14th Amendment, that's the devil. That doesn't give me any rights. They say citizenship and nationals. Well, look at what a citizen and a national is. It's a foreign agent, foreign corporation. You're not lawful. You're legal. The 14th Amendment even clearly states that one is unconditional sovereign by natural born, your bloodline going back on the state of 48 states on the soil united. Sit down and actually read the real instruments, and when it says to citizens and nationals, we comprehend what a citizen is and a national. So if you know what the words mean, and this is where people do not comprehend what the words mean. Our forefathers, they wrote citizen back and said they were citizens from England. They knew it. Step out of the movie. Learn how to watch a production of a movie. If you've never been watching a production of a movie, sometimes maybe you might get lucky and go watch and see how a movie's actually done, and you might pay attention. See, when you start seeing different words, knowing the terminology of what the word means, not what you think it is or what we've been programmed to think it is. You know, that's the beauty of this country. It's 270 years old new. People say, well, the Constitution was not perfect. Well, it was the best instrument by the people who wrote it at the time because they knew religion, Christianity, Roman Catholic Church, Muslim, and all that was all well known back in the 16 and 1700s. You think they didn't know about it? I mean, even 1700s. You know, Jackson was the one who created the Marines to go after, what is that called? Muslims. That's why they're banned from this country, because of their religion. You know, it's sad when you could go in all states, and people don't realize that. Most states today, in the 48 states, you can marry 13-year-old children. Read the real structure. California just passed another administrative rule to ensure it, but see, even California law goes back where you can marry a minor. It's been done before. You know, and now most of them married minors, and if you actually go back in your religious history, they did it inside the chambers. Even with the minister, was done inside the chambers. It was not done publicly. There is a big separation of public and private. So when you're out in public, yes, we do have public rights to film public servants, but we don't have a right to interfere when they're rape, robbing, and pillaging. Oh, yes, we do. That's called a crime. So it'd be nice when men start and women start doing this, standing up when they see criminal activities. Instead of what goes on today with the news media and the sheriff's departments and departments, not sheriff. There's a difference. Sheriff is lawful. Sheriff departments and deputies and police departments and all that are legal. They're called rent-a-cops, technically. They're mall cops. I know. I was one at a time. I've been a rent-a-cop. I've been on the old structure. I even had my own private security company at one point. So I know how what the law is compared to the fantasy, what people think of a public servant or a cop is. But a cop takes an oath to office, and if he does not honor that oath, he shall be dealt with, and that comes to we the people. We have to enforce that. When you see a cop that's going rogue, that's why I'm putting up the stuff on the new.org and trackers, so we can start putting together a list of people, so when you see something, you know it's wrong, you can back up your neighbor. Neighbor doesn't mean it has to be your neighbor across the street, because your neighbor means knowing what's going on in your 48 states. Your 48 states are your neighbors, and when you see corruption, we got to start standing up for it. If we don't stand up for the bloodline, and that's lawful bloodline and legal, what future are we going to have? That's why they do DNA testing to see who's lawful and legal in the country. Oh, that's a fact. They started doing that with the FBI back in 1958. To see who was lawful and legal on the bloodlines. That's where they were going with the bloodlines and started that. It wasn't until, I believe it was in 78 when they passed it so they could start taking bloodline for DNA testing, and then you realize that most DNA testing and court procedures are fraud, because most of these men and women go to court, they're going after conviction, even though the DNA might not be there, but they're going after conviction because they know if they get conviction rates, they get more state and federal funding because the House and Senate passes more funding for them. That's crazy. I've seen some of the bills and how this stuff goes. I've watched things that passed in the Oregon State House, Senate and House on fraud. Like Nancy Pelosi and Obamacare says, we got to pass this bill. We don't have time to read it. We just pass it and we can deal with it later. They read it ahead of time. How dumb are people? When you really consider it, how stupid is your neighbor? Realistically, look at your neighbor, how dumb they are to believe that crap. The Obama bill even had structures to do with your bloodline. Claiming your bloodline. To the Queen of England Corporation. Read the damn thing. That's the point. People don't sit there and read. They go by these news media that are paid to mind control you. And because it seems logical when these people talk and they say things and it seems logical or realistic to you, you accept it. That is the saddest part, that you do that, is you go along and you accept these things. Instead of sitting there realizing what's going on, is that these men and women are using their religious beliefs. Oh, yes, it's their religious beliefs, because when you go to a court or when the House and Senate passes bills, it's all based on religion. Because before a House and Senate bill truly can be accepted, it has to go through the Vatican. Actually, if you ever get a chance, go sit up at your House and Senate floor across the 48 states, not 50, because 48 states is lawful, not legal. That became the 1871, what is that called? The British Vatican contract. In this state, that's the Vatican contract. That goes back to the Vatican contract, the Devil's Contract of 1213, and the Magna Carta of 1215, which are all from England, not of American people, native people. It's like Columbus sat there and came around and gave us the word Indian. So it gives us the word Indian because he was on his way to India or wherever he was going and had to come up with something because he was killing people. And people go, oh, they're taking Columbus Day away from us. I don't have a problem with them stealing Columbus Day away from us. Didn't Columbus rape, rob, and murder the natives when he came here? And they weren't just Indians that were here, because remember, black Chinese and Russians and all this stuff have been on this soil for 1,000 years. And people will say, oh, well, they should go back to their original country. Excuse me. They came here because the original country was run by religion that destroyed their people. Think about it. How many times has religion murdered people in mass quantities? Mao, religion. Nazi Germany, Roman Catholic, and Christianity. Oh yeah, Christianity. What is part of it? Go do your research. People say Roman Catholic and Christianity are separate. Well, they did form together, and so read the history of what, why, and how. It is one of those things. They did form together. It was part of the structure with, what the heck was it? I'll come back to that thought here in a minute. That formed it, and then they want to separate it and try to separate and say that we're Christians. So I'd like to say that, I'm part of the Great Spirit. I like to say that the Creator created us, and I'm part of Mother Earth, because without Mother, we have no life. You are not alive right now today, looking in your mirror when you get up, if it wasn't for Mother. Simple. Except for those who have been cloned and those who are, computer generated, which there are people like that in your neighborhoods, realistically. I mean, we've been even named computer structure going back in the 1970s. People don't get a lot of these movies, like Tom Cruise in Pre-Crime. You live in pre-crime today because if you fart in the wind, like what they have done to children, arrest children in classrooms, literally, for what they call that offensive odor, that's pre-crime. They arrest them and take them to jail. That's pre-crime. When you get a traffic ticket and don't have their paperwork, that's pre-crime because you didn't pay their religious point of view. You didn't pay the privilege of the Vatican or the king to travel. You don't have a hunting and fishing license. You didn't pay the privilege to feed yourself. People say, well, God says that we have a right to feed ourselves in the Bible. Well, where's your God? Prove it. The city and state are doing this, and you sitting there and you claiming different things in your Bible. How come you're not standing exactly next to your structure? That is the point. People do not stand together. When people learn how to start standing together and being honorable, then we can start saving this country. But until people decide to be respectful of one another, instead of sitting there going, well, I can't do anything unless I get a paycheck. That's the point. If your family owns land, write it up for your grandchildren. Protect the land, collect rainwater, grow food. You know, collect rainwater, flush your toilets. That's another way of saving on the water. Oh, I don't want to do that, man. I mean, if I have to lift the bucket, flush the toilet instead of pushing a plunger down, oh my God, that's an embarrassment. I'm not the king of the house or the queen. I don't have rights, and you're trying to tell me to be a peasant, so I have to sit there and do this? Folks, we're not kings and we are kings and queens of our own land, yeah. But also, too, we have to come to common sense and realistic point of view of how do we preserve what the Great Spirit gives us, or your God if you want to go that way, or what the Creator gave us. Creator gives us water and food. So if you don't have water and food, how are you supposed to survive? Oh, well, they got all these chemicals you can mix with water now, and you can have liquid food now. Well, and what does that do to the innards of your body when you do that? So what does that do to your bloodline when it comes down to it? What are you doing contaminating your bloodline for personal gain? See, I mean, the vegetables are there. The Great Spirit made sure that we had food to eat. You know? It's like, you know, it's like, you know, those are adding up. But it's like Christianity was part of common law. Christianity is a parcel of laws of England. Christianity is English law. Christian religion is spoken in subversion of law. And that goes back in the structure of the British court in 1676. Religion is a part of common law. So common law is the judge. People say, oh, we have the right to common law. Well, you go to court and you give the judge authority on common law, you're giving him the authority to rule over you. File for a grand jury. 12 men, 25 in the rears. That means 6 men and 6 women on both sides have to be participants, not of your community. If you go back in real structure of our country here, or with native elders, you had to live in the community, so you went in front of people that were in your community. And that means your family. That means, oh, that's right, your brothers and sisters. That means your neighbors or the injured party and the victim of it. And public servants cannot be on grand jury because their opinion is financial gain. It's like I've been after public employees to not even be able to vote in the state of Oregon for 25 years. I even proposed a ballot measure, and I even proposed a Senate bill on it, so that way public employees can vote, and contractors. It was strictly, basically, bloodline Americans were the only ones that had the right to vote because we own the country, so we have a right to say. So most of the people are not going to go for personal financial gain because they know if they lose their land and stuff, they're not going to be able to survive. You know, and that goes back to the 14th Amendment, too, where it says a U.S. citizen or U.S. national, state citizen, inhabitant. You know, if you're claiming to be an inhabitant, that's a citizen. So that's the point. I mean, I pass a lot of laws around, administrative rules, and I do this to educate you, and people want to go arguing about this, and it's like, what are you arguing about when you have information that when you are going to court, you use their rules, their administrative rules back to them? When you go to these courts, you ask the question to the judge. Your Honor, I don't like to use an honor. I always called them by their first name in court. Tell you the truth and piss them off, but I don't care. They work for me. You know, hey, Tom, answer this question. Isn't this the way it is? In this administrative rule, it says that it gives me this privilege or right. Would you tell me what a privilege and a right is? Could you define what a privilege is? Because I'm lawful or I'm legal. Let them define it so that way they're on record, not for you to answer their questions. The other famous part that I'm catching on that a lot of people, and I've been watching a lot of videos, and even some movies, new movies have come out with this in the movies. You know, guys are getting pulled over by cops in the movies recently, and it's nice when you sit there, when the movie's sitting there and the cop walks up and goes, driver's license and registration, and a guy or a girl in the car is, oh, that's in 3 movies so far this year. Where it says, where they popped out and turned around and says, well, I don't answer questions. And I was like, holy moly, man, somebody's getting this. They're paying attention. You know, that's the point. They are slowly paying attention. We can't sit there and wave a magic wand and expect some of this stuff to disappear. But we can sit there with some of the education and some of the stuff that I'm putting together, read it. If it works for you, use it. Dave and I wrote together and put together a thing called the constitutional contract. That's what Judge Scalia, we had made sure Judge Scalia had it 2 weeks before he was assassinated, murdered. We knew he was murdered. Because he went to Texas because they were going to start filing the paperwork on Obama to have him charged with treason. Seriously, folks. Treason. They were going to punish Obama by the capital offense, and that would have took down the Democratic Party. Okay, that means the Democratic Party would have to sit there and, I don't know, we would eliminate the Democratic and Republican Party, so that way if you decide to run for office, you had to run by your name, not your Christian name. I don't go for Christian names. It goes by your name, so you had to be honorable. Your reputation spoke for yourself. And people say, oh, well, they had fair elections. No, well, it's interesting. And it's like, you know, it's interesting because I have fun with the last election that happened, the presidential election. It proved a major point, and that's where Trump says, well, I can't sit there and say it was a deal because he won. Part of that, you know, yeah. But if you go back in real history and you retype in William Jefferson Clinton, election machines, they programmed election machines to win. So, of course, Hillary got the popular vote because that was done by computerized machines. That's like the recall in Oregon being done by a computerized machine on the internet where, you know, these fools are sitting there going, I haven't seen any numbers from the internet on the recall on Cape Brown by these guys. The original recall that was filed was done by me, and that was done lawfully. So lawfully means that you had to have it signed, autographed, served into record. So it was served into record, so that way it was lawful, not legal. There is a difference of lawful and legal in elections. And it's like technically a voter. If you don't own land, you're not entitled to vote. Then they changed the voting administrative rules. They changed voting administrative rules to allow for foreigners, basically, people that are in this state legally, or this country legally, to vote. And technically, immigration are technically not supposed to vote whatsoever at all, period. End of story. They don't have a right to vote in our country. They have a right to say. I mean, even some of the voting machines that turned out that came in were from other countries, too. How come people didn't read the papers or some of the couple of the mainstream media has brought it up with some of the votes that came out that were done illegally from other countries, saying they had a right to vote. No, they do not have a right to vote. You know, that's the point, that we need a central structure of our administrative rules that gives us rights, not privileges. And as soon as you start standing up for those rights, you know, then you can start having something to say about things. But I always love when people say, oh, well, this is going on and that's going on, and I ask people all the time, did you stand up for your rights? Did you do this? Did you do that? Oh, no, that's somebody else's job. I elect people to do that. Well, okay, so in other words, when you have a representative called elected and public employee, senator, house, mayor, county commissioner, you know, even a board member on a committee, an electricity company that's even public or private, And technically all electricity companies are publicly owned. They're not private, but they changed that in the 1980s. So they're claiming it. And that's where people go along with some of this stuff. This is where people have got to start standing up and protecting the bloodline. It's your responsibility. It's not mine. You know, your responsibility. It is mine to stand up and protect our rights, too, because I do that. But it's not mine where, you know, it's a wish and a prayer where most people go, well, we're supposed to do this, we're supposed to do that. You know, it's like, let me put it this way. Sort of interesting when you think about it when the French gave us the Statue of Liberty. One of those things when you really think about it. How come the Statue of Liberty is in the middle of an island in a bay? I mean, seriously, think about that for a minute. So, in other words, they didn't put it on our soil so that way we had liberty. They put it so that way, and when you get on a ship in the open ocean, you're on a ship, you're under martial commercial law, maritime law, and then when you go to a parcel of land, you get off, and then you can go raise hell, do whatever you want to do, unless you offended where the captain of the boat felt that you assaulted the boat. You didn't have no issues. You didn't have no problems. But if you would have sat there and done something on that land or soil, and you're what they call freedom, liberty, the privilege, that's the point that people don't get on the liberty. Statute of Liberty is on an island. Now, yes, we do have liberty. It says that in the administrative writings of our bill. People say the Constitution is not for you. You don't have rights to it. All right, let's say it's an administrative bill, administrative rules that we have, and it's up to your bloodline to claim it. If you can prove your bloodline goes back to at least the Civil War when that happens under the Civil Rights Treaty, the Civil Rights Treaty of 1871, that gave the structure to the people, the lawful bloodline Americans, and they wrote in federal and Supreme Court decisions back there, if you're a citizen and national, you know, if you're a citizen or national, then that way you have rights of a foreign country. If you're lawful, you have rights under the administrative rules of the Constitution. I think that's sort of explanatory, simple enough. You know, I mean, the thing is like, you know, people interpret words as like, you know, I've talked to people for years about the Bible, and they keep telling me, you don't comprehend this, Ed, or you don't understand. And I don't understand anything because I don't stand underneath nobody. I'll overstand you. I'll comprehend you, but I will not understand. I will not be under nobody. Either we're equal or we're not. We're supposed to be equal men and women. We're supposed to have respect for one another. We're not supposed to dictate to one another how one another is supposed to live. And people do that all the time. That's the saddest part that goes on. And we see it all the time today. You know, and that's the one frustration that we do have. You know, once you start realizing that you accept your bloodline and start claiming ownership of you, your bloodline, your children. And that was a good question that was brought up last night to me. Where do you file your rights? The county commissioners, the police departments. You walk in and you hang it on the bulletin board. You walk in and go make sure that, I don't know, the court reporter of the city is served. Court reporter is supposed to take all the reports and records from anybody serving the court, not just the court of that city. They're the recorder for the city corporation. Don't let them lie to you. They are. They know it. These men and women enjoy lying. You know, because if they didn't lie, they wouldn't be able to make the salaries they're making today. And that's a real fact, folks. Comprehend this reality. If they didn't lie, they couldn't make the salary they make today. And then when you have respectful and honorable public servants We used to have a lot of them until basically until the 1990s. A lot of them. But then people started suing them. There was one case in California where a public servant, a peace officer, and that's exactly what he was, a peace officer, picked up an individual, was driving them home, and they got hit by a car accident. And this is the point that the car accident happened. They were hit. And the insurance company for the city decided they weren't going to cover the woman because she was not a state employee. And that's back when they started, back when they said, oh, we cannot give people rides anymore. And that used to be covered in their budgets. That was part of public service and public safety. To make sure the woman got home without being assaulted. Making sure a man or a woman who ended up being intoxicated was taken home. So that way they weren't assaulted or further damage happened to them. See, that's the point, is that people do not see how these structures really do work. We have structures that have been put in place to protect you. And that's the point. How do you know how to protect you if you don't know how to read the law and comprehend it? I've had people say that they can read stuff, but it doesn't make sense to them. And, it's like, it always stuns me when people say that. Like a policy and custom for which a municipality may be highly liable and can arise in 4 ways. That means a city, county, state, public servant, through an expression policy, such as written order or regulation. So if they have a city ordinance and that caused you personal injury, that means the municipality is liable. Oh, did you comprehend that one? See, it's like, if they put an ordinance up, it's like when they sat out there and they put the helmet law on the kids in the state of Oregon. And I was there when they were doing this, and I spoke up at the Senate hearing and said, you can't pass a law or administrative rules, what I said, forcing something that you could cause personal harm on somebody by assaulting them for this, if you personally are not supplying the helmets yourself. And I meant that, too. If you're not personally applying those helmets for yourself, for that man or woman or that child to protect them, you claim liability. And they knew it. They knew exactly what I meant. And that's what was passed in the bill. That's why. And then they put up these programs. Oh, donate a helmet here. So they got around it by having you pay for it. And some of the cities do actually pay. We got an exchange on a couple of my reservoirs here in my county, where they put up boards, which I am glad to see, which this is, people are paying attention, and this is where you have to pay attention and respect these things, and if you got an extra one, throw one up when you see it. It's floating devices, so that way men, women, and children, and they got boards up there. I prefer the ones that are actually closed compared to the ones that are open for the weather to shorten the life of the life preservers. But in Oregon Territory, we do have that in some of the West Coast reservoirs and lakes here, and some of the rivers actually do have some of them being put up nowadays, which I like to see them put up locally by local people, because most people have a lot of the wood laying around their yard, and if they combined it, 5 or 10 neighbors combined it, you can put up one of these things, and next thing you know, you have life preservers in the area. Well, if somebody doesn't want to do that, isn't it their responsibility if they drowned? If they have a life preserver on and if they go down and drown, well, what are you going to do? Blame the company? Well, you really can't do that. You did the best you can. That's where people, and I have to say this, where I call the Creator, but you might call it God. God took their life because wasn't that God's responsibility? God called them home, so he was supposed to take them home. These are things that happen where people do not comprehend these things of how it works. Okay, now my computer wants to play games on me again. So I'm thinking I'll, oh yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. I got to bring up one point with the national anthem. And this is the one thing I would like to get people to comprehend this interesting thought. A real thought. And I mean real thought. Okay, the national anthem. You get all these men and women kneeling to the national anthem. I think it's sort of wonderful in a sense. I don't consider it disrespectful, and I'll explain to you comprehendibly, explain to you why, and the true reason why. And I want to see if you guys could comprehend this point where these men and women are kneeling to the national anthem. I stand for it because I'm a lawful bloodline American native. So I stand for it. I look at all these men and women who are kneeling for the national anthem as citizens and immigrants, nationals. So by them kneeling is showing respect to my family who fought in the wars to protect the soil. That gives them their, bloodline rights. Gives us our bloodline rights. You know, I hate it when my computer does that and gets overridden by somebody else. I wish that man or woman who overrode my computer, maybe you find a car accident and do something. Maybe the Great Spirit will punish you for doing what you're doing. But anyhow, because that's out of my control, I'm not going to go out and threaten somebody, because if I threaten somebody, I'm going to do it. So I just say, let the Great Spirit handle that when you get a backdoor intruder. It'll happen. I have faith. I have faith in the Creator, not religion. Religion is man-controlled to control man and woman. But kneeling at the national anthem, and think about this, pass this around, throw this around for thought. So kneeling at the national anthem, I mean, we got immigrants, citizens, nationals, that are actually showing you and I, the native people, I don't care if you're Indian, black, Chinese, Russian, whatever color or whatever race, and please don't say African American. I don't say I'm a white American. I don't say I'm an African or an Indian American. I'm an American. If I use African American, Indian American, Chinese American, I'm putting a title of nobility. The 13th Amendment says, I shall not have a title of nobility. So why do people sit there and do the title of nobility when you sit there and they're not supposed to have a title of nobility? Are you a free man or woman, or are you enslaved? See, and then you want to talk about the 14th and 13th Amendment that doesn't give you rights. Well, you don't want your rights. You don't want the rights that the forefathers of our country worked with the natives to comprehend rights. Let's not forget that these men and women smoked hemp with these things. And, of course, people tell you, well, hemp back then ain't what it is today. Well, no, it's not. We've been chemically altered so much. But hemp is hemp. You took it for medicinal use. Not everybody just smoked it to get stoned and watch the flies circulate on the TV set. You know, that's the other point, that people get into these stupid movies that, you know, you don't sit there, I should put two more up. So people get in these stupid movies about pot and stuff, and it's like, come on, wake up. The war on drugs was to control your bloodline and you. 70% of the people in jail today are there because of marijuana, ganja, pot. Did they take a gun to anybody's head? No. Did they shoot anybody? No. Did they drive a car too fast? Most cases, no, because when you're stoned, you can't do that. You're so paying attention, it's not paranoid. You are more cautious when you're stoned than when you're not. Responsible men and women know that if they do something, they have to live with the consequences. People know about consequences. People who are religious, oh, I just go buy my way out. I just pay. You can't buy your way to heaven. I hate to tell you. That's reality. Paying the churches doesn't give you anything, and if you look at 501c3 through 501 or 59s, you are to give your structure of that 501c3 or through 9 to another nonprofit, and they try to always have you do it to the Elected and Public Employees Union. I don't like using the word government, because we the people are the government. Once you start accepting that reality and start talking realistically, You know, because I talk to people all the time, and they start talking government, and I've even hung up on a few people that doing that, and then they call back and why are you doing that? And I said, don't sit there and tell me I'm raping and robbing my people because you're calling me a government. I am not the raper. I am not the criminal. I despise those things. So when you categorize me, I get pissed off. And you should too. You know, it's like I just got another email dealing with Senator Jerry, dealing with, we're closer to 1 cent tax reform, you know, Maureen in Kansas. And it's like, people, I've got the law on tax control, and if you actually look at it, taxes are not to be paid on labor. Taxes are solely interest and dividends. If you own a corporation and a business, unless you got interest and dividends that are rolling over in the bank accounts or the property assets of interest and dividends, you're not required to pay taxes. Read the tax law. If people actually read the tax law, that would be a miracle. Miracles do happen, you know. You read the tax law. Read what the miracle is in the tax structure. You know, the one movie that I do suggest to people to watch is Theft by Deception. It's a wonderful video to watch. Wonderful video. Please take the time to watch it. Please take the time to research it. You know, it's like the other point that under the Fifth Amendment, paying income tax. And I post this up all the time. All the time. You know, people are compelled to file income tax that violates your Fifth Amendment rights. And it's the Supreme Court decision. Garner versus the United States, 424 U.S. 648, 1975. Establishing that wages and income are not equal as to taxes or income are concerned. Decision case has been made, and this is one that was an upcoming one. Okay, I got you. I'll get into that one. You got a point. I should go ahead. I've been going on for some time here. I do apologize. Sometimes I get going on a roll, and sometimes I don't think. We're all guilty of that one. I could even admit to that one myself. Anyhow, let's open up the board to open question and answers, or anybody who's got some thoughts, or anybody's got some thoughts for this week, next week's show, or whatever is going on in your mind. Let's open up the floor and let's talk.
Q&A session has started.
Q&A queue. Just hit *61, and I will see you and let you through.
Go ahead if you got some questions. Yeah. So somebody speaks up instead of having total dead air. You know, income tax is what I'm going through. And the new income tax that I'm quoting you on the Fifth Amendment ruling, this was done, we got the cases in 75. And I got the stuff that I post up in Citizenship if you go on our Facebook walls. United States for America Republic Elected and Public Servants Oversight. It's an oversight because we are the public employers, and so we're supposed to oversight our employees. You have a responsibility to teach your children that too, that you have employees, not the government. Educate them that they know that they are the government. That way they know that their senator and House of Representatives, mayor and city county are public servants, not representatives, because you could have a representative where you go to court. You could even, and that's the one thing too, ask your senator, your congressman to represent you in the court case. You get a traffic ticket. Ask them to represent you. When they tell you no, ask them why. But you want to do that in writing. Go ahead.
You brought up about a point about that lawyers are not to be judges. They're supposed to be people that know law that are supposed to be judges, not lawyers. Where can I
Talk to your phone. I can't hear you. You're mumbled and muffled.
Sorry. You said something about lawyers are not supposed to be judges. Where can I find that?
Oh, that's, you can type that in the Bar Association. The American Bar Association has that. You can even type in judges on the internet cannot be attorneys, or attorneys cannot be judges. That come up. The Farmington website has a lot of that on their site that I'm putting up a link. I got to get back a hold of the guy because I'm going to be setting up some of their links on it. I think we do have that in the legal or the judge stuff on our in our structure on new.org and Tracker. I believe we did post the administrative rules to that up on our site as well.
Where would I find that on Oregon Trackers?
Go to the legal stuff where it goes to the courts. It'll be there on the court structure.
Okay, thank you.
And then if I run across it in my travels, I'll send it to you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe I have your email, don't I?
Yes, Ed, you do.
Okay, so we'll pass it back and forth, and I'll either send it to you Messenger or something to get it to you. Because right now I'm looking for a response because a gentleman just emailed me a structure dealing with the court system that now they want to charge him on a court cost that he won the court case, but they want to charge him jury fees for their court case. They can only do that in England, folks. So I'm going to find a federal law right now, and the federal administrative court law in Washington, D.C. says they cannot do that. But these men and women will do anything that they'll try to get away with to you. Literally. And I think I just found it, so I'll send it to you in Messenger right now. So, but I mean, they're going through this stuff right now, going against you to utilize this. This is like I just went through this point with another individual telling me that, oh, the clan mothers are doing this, and we have these rights and stuff going on, and I messaged her back. She sends me a whole bunch of videos back, and I said, no, I want to see the winning court cases. I want to see the facts. You should have that in Messenger now, one of them. And I said to her, I said, I want to see the facts. I don't want to see what you're sitting there trying to convince me of. I want to see the facts of how your administrative rules are actually working in the British court system. Because you get pulled over for traffic citation, what do? They try to go after and kill you if you don't pay the income. And that's what we want to make sure, that we sit there and we don't go through these things. You know, that's why when we start filing these administrative rules on these men and women, we file them. Like I said, we do have a public notice wall on our site. So this way, when we file these things, you file them, you get them to us, we'll make sure they're up there. When they're up there, then you have it on public record, and then you want to make sure you send that around email to everybody else you know. Yeah, all right, it pushes the website out. Great. But the other point is you're on public record on a public structure that is paid for commercially as a public media. So that way they can't argue with it. Now you have recorded record. I mean, you know, these are things to look at. These are things that I bring to people's attention that, you know, if we don't sit there and protect your bloodline, immigration or lawful, illegals, I tell you, the DREAM Act does not work. Ronald Reagan, they tried the DREAM Act with Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan even predicted and passed a deal where they could only allow 1 million immigrants in, period. After that, immigration was never supposed to be opened again if they didn't do it legally to come into this country by the Constitution. They weren't allowed. And then everyone, well, Bush did this. No, I tell you, Clinton was the one who opened the floodgates on that one. I mean, even Carter was so liberal, but at least he honored the border rights. He didn't honor the part where they allowed him to allow immigrants to vote for him in Florida. Florida was the state that carried him. But that's here nor there at this point now. But at least he honored immigration rights, and that's the point. We need to honor immigration rights. And I just sent you another link on that one, too. I'm putting this on my site, Edward Johnston, because all four of the other sites, the United States for Elected and Public Service Oversights, the Civil Rights 1938 lawful or 1868 lawful bloodline Americans, recall of Kate Brown's site, and all those, I've been blocked from posting again. I've had religious people go after me because I don't go by their religion, or whoever went after me, and Democrats or whatever, and went after me because I was posting stuff, and they didn't like the structure that I was posting, proving stuff that was going against what they were trying to convince others in the general public to go along with. That's the saddest part. You know, we got people out there dictating that my religion says this, so I have a right. Like the Muslims are sitting there in Australia with their signs on the street corners in Australia saying, I have the right to marry a 13-year-old or make love to a goat if I want to. What the heck are you on a street corner telling everybody you're screwing at the goat for? You figured you would have more respect for yourself. If you did that, you not only maybe you'd be ashamed, but embarrassed as heck. So, I mean, you know, these guys have no embarrassment or shame. And we have people that are not even Muslim in that religion doing it. We got others out there doing it. You know, if they're doing that, well, okay, then let them deal with it. But I don't want to hear them on street corners like I plan on doing a talk show on the gay and lesbians. Literally. I'm going to hit that one very hard. You know, because people have no rights to judge a gay and lesbian. If they want to be gay and lesbian, excuse me, that's their Constitution privilege or right. The Constitution ensures their right to be whoever they want, so long as that they're not causing personal and property damage. I don't agree with it, but my job is not to agree with certain things of the Constitution. I have to respect the Constitution, because if I don't respect your rights, how do I expect you to respect my right or my religious belief? My religious belief is the Great Spirit, the Creator, Mother Earth, and the Constitution. I do not support any structure of the Bible or religious manuals. Because to me, they're religious manuals. They're not there to instruct us on how to live. They're out there controlling us. Because, see, if God gave us these rights, then we have rights, not privileges. So, and like I tell people, where does it say in the Bible it gives you a right? It doesn't give you a right. That's the point. There is no right through the Bible. Excuse me. Flies. I can't stand them. But it doesn't give you a right. But the Constitution at least ensures you some security against religion, because your courts are run by religious people. Comprehend that reality. Your courts are run by religious people. They believe in their religion. That's like the one lady, because her religion believes that she couldn't file that marriage license for the gay couple in, I think it was Minnesota. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that woman should have spent 2 weeks in jail. She sat there and said her religion was above the Constitution. They got this going around Facebook, all Facebook structure going around. Well, we got to protect the religion, and don't you believe in God? Shouldn't God's Bible run this country? No. You have religion run your country, you have no rights. That means democracy, the majority rules, and so if the majority says tomorrow, you're not allowed to eat potatoes, even if you roam on your land. You can be publicly hung or swatted for it. That becomes administrative rule or law. See, a republic says if a man is accused or a woman is accused of something, you have to bring him in front of a grand jury. And if a man or a woman is sitting there and they were falsely accused or something, you know, or somebody was assaulting a young woman or a child or woman or man, or it doesn't matter, mentally retarded, whatever, and somebody reacted and dealt with it right there at the time, and they dealt with it the best way they knew, and probably they extinguished the terminator, the problem, the termination problem, or that bloodline. And they terminated that bloodline, and it's like that one situation was recently was all over Facebook and media that a teenage girl was raped. She was 14 years old. One of the relatives walked in, and in the participation of that rape, went into another room, grabbed the pistol, came back and shot him in the head. And they're going, well, oh, that guy should go to jail for shooting the other guy in the head. Wrong. Do you believe you have a right to protect your bloodline? See, if you don't believe you have a right to protect your bloodline, what are you doing in our country? Isn't that what the Roman Catholic Church did? Didn't the Roman Catholic Church fund, the British government fund Nazi Germany? Didn't they fund and created and do the same structure as Nazi Germany? That's the point that people do not get through their head on what's really going on in our circumstances of the territories that we live in. And if you don't sit there and start participating in these things, it's like, I mean, what was it, last year? I've been pushing this for, about a decade now. I even put together dealing with H.R. 192, trying to get them so that way they write it off. And it was May 2000 this year, 2017, where former Governor John Kitzhaber came out publicly in the news media and says, hey, how come we're not writing the debt off on House Resolution 192? Former governor, who's a doctor, who sat there 10, 12 years ago, argued with me in the hallway at the Capitol, telling me I didn't know what I was talking about, birth certificates and this stuff. And then this year he admits I'm writing a newspaper. I've argued with these people in the hallways of the Capitol. I've even publicly spoken about stuff like this in public hearings at the Capitol. I've been in newspaper articles about this stuff in public record. Yeah, I'm going to post this on my wall. I should be able to do it when it comes up here now. So you go to my wall, see if I can post on there. But this is one thing that I was posting with, Kim Thatcher. I'm going to see if I can post it on my group pages. I know they've been blocking me on my group pages. This is one thing I was doing with Senator Kim Thatcher, trying to get this done. And all of a sudden I get these emails from different people saying, well, Kim did this and she's doing that. And I'm like, well, I don't see the administrative rule that went through to protect lawful Americans' rights to travel without being shot or raped, robbed, and pillaged by the democracy of the Senate and House. Because remember, the Senate and House are British government employees of the Vatican. When you take an oath to the Constitution, you give up your rights of lawful American and what they call citizenship to the corporation. So if you don't honor Title 5, 33.1 and 33.33, you have no rights to be employed. That's the Constitution. If you don't, each state has to go by and apply to the Constitution. And if you don't sit there and go through that, in that, honoring that through the Constitution, you have no rights to be employed. And we even have that on our Facebook sites, too, that I posted up and on the website. Okay, I somehow went on the groups. I hope it's on the groups, because I've had people tell me that recently they go to the groups and they haven't been able to see the groups on the internet. And I'm going, what are you talking about? I can see it. And, but I haven't seen anybody send me a link back where it says they can't see it. I don't know what they were trying to refer to. But that's the way the ball bounces on that one. But I put those up on my wall. You'll see Senator Kim Thatcher homepage. I put up the written structure so we could put in the point so we could have our lawful right to travel without being interfered. I even have a videotape in 2015 with me and Senator Arnie Roebland that I put out in a newsletter every week that I do for the talk show when I change the topics, that I have with Arnie Roebland, where I even got him admitting how the Democratic Party stole the money, because when you register your covered wagon, okay, you're supposed to pay your car insurance with the registration of your covered wagon. Insurance is already covered in the registration. They put that through when they started registering cars technically in 1974. So they had to put in that part where they had to register and cover the insurance through it, and that was part of administrative rules and structure of the arguments that attorneys already went through and did. They already did this way back when. So this was already proven a real fact. And so Arnie Roblin, I mean, we're talking $1 billion missing out of the fund. And you can watch the video. Just type in Arnie Roblin, Senator Arnie Roblin, Edward Johnston, or Ed Johnston. It should come up. And he's going, oh, that money's already been spent. You know, I didn't want to get him into the argumentative point of view, which I could have done, which I wanted to do. Trust me, I did. But he already admitted to it's already been spent by the Democratic Party. They stole the money. They embezzled the money. He admitted to him. I got him on record admitting to how they embezzled the money. So what more do we need? We got the evidence there. I've got the stuff on YouTube videos, and people say, well, Ed, you got all this evidence, you got all this stuff, and why isn't this happening or why isn't that happening? Well, and as I got 13 emails today from different men and women. Well, we know this stuff, Ed, and how come this ain't working? And I emailed them all back, and I said, well, when are you going to file and sign these affidavits? When are you going to stand up for your bloodline? When are you going to start doing this, that, and the other thing? I haven't received comments back that I'm aware of. I got one comment back, but I haven't read it yet. But my point to that circumstance is, okay, we have it. You know, it's like I just posted on my wall, dealing with the law, that's how they get paid a salary under 1938 structure, or 1933 structure for the oath of office, so they get compensated for employment to honor their oath. So they're getting paid to honor the oath. There we have a contract and verbal structure of the privilege of employment to honor, to protect our constitutional rights. And that is lawful bloodline as well as legal immigration. And that's the point, that people have to start comprehending what legal immigration is compared to what they think it is. I'll post up another Congress record on my Edward site here, underneath on the deal, with the one I just put up with the Kim Thatcher. And as I explained this, I mean, I've been up there at the Capitol arguing this stuff for years. And I've had people for years that will sit there and go, Ed, well, how come it didn't go through? It's like when I recalled the entire Lincoln County School Board. I recalled them 61, 62% through 67% was the highest one. And that was the banker, or county commissioner that's now. And that was the one thing that, you know, I got the county commissioner that's presently, he was appointed. Of course, he gets elected because the polls here are controlled. Trust me, that's a fact. I know it. It even happened to me when I ran for office. The mayor won the mayor's race. And they even wrote in the newspapers back in 2004. See, this was part of the headline of the newspapers. Mayor Sharon Brandstatter wins by dead votes. So, I mean, you know, these things really do happen. So, but if people would have stood up, it's like when I recalled the school board, and everybody says, well, you recalled the school board, you got them nailed for $30 million. I said, well, if people would have signed the other part of the petition. And the other point that I realized I made a terrible mistake when I did the recall. See, this is part of what you learn along the passage of life. You learn this stuff through the passage of life. In the recall petitions, which I'm doing a few more coming up here that I'm going to be doing publicly on a few things, and they'll come publicly once I finish writing them. But I have to put in the recall that, all right, these elected and public officials did this and did that. So now because they did that and they did this, that I have to put the criminal charges in the recall. So that way when they are recalled, they have to go to jail. It's already in the charges. That's part of the charges written in the deal. So if the voters prove that, they're mandatory jail. See, I mean, they put in a system, and it's walking around the system and learning the system for what it is compared to what we think it is. That's the major point. People don't comprehend this once you start putting the pieces together. And like I said, the main part was legal immigration. If legal immigration and people pay their taxes and follow the tax code and the structures the way it's intended, the system has to protect you because you're paying the devil, the king and queen of England, to pay you, and that's part of administrative rules. That's actually in administrative rules. But it is reading administrative rules for what they do, how they protect you. And that's the one thing I try to get people to comprehend these things, because if we start doing it, like the state of Oregon did this, Kate Brown was the biggest push on this beside Peter Courtney. 2000, they changed the Oregon State Constitution, said it was done by the voters, but the voters had no idea what they were voting for. And it changed the Constitution into a democracy, so the state of Oregon, elected and public servants, and the lawyers own everything in your home, including your land. And people have no idea what they read because they're not intelligent enough to comprehend what they read. And it says that, 2000, they passed it. I got it up on the link, and when I get a chance, I'll post it back up on the sites here. But it does say it, They own everything. They own you. They own your children. They own your land. They own your jewelry. They own your toilet paper. Terry Thompson in 1999 passed an administrative rule that I spoke against, and I proved that Patty Burke lied to the world. True fact. True fact. Proved they lied to the world. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. And so when I proved this, because they passed an administrative rule that says all the marine life, that's your shells, that's your fish in your freezer, that's the food that you buy at the grocery store, everything belongs to the Oregon State Police Department. If they want to come in and steal it from you, that's like Kate Brown passing the gun law. Says, or gun administrative rules, not law. Gun administrative rules says the cops can come in and steal your ammo and your guns, and they can shoot you on sight. Read it. Cold-blooded murder. This is what the Christian Bible says. This is what the Roman Catholic Church is really doing. This is a structure that goes back to the Bible itself, and how come people are not comprehending that? Oh, that's true. And this is the other point that I want to bring up. Your elected and public servants have privileges. Okay? You are acting as an elected and public servant when you're giving up or due to your constitutional rights. If you enforce your rights as the owner of your land, your bloodline, and your servants, your public elected servants are supposed to work for you. Are you acting like a subject and a privilege under their administrative rules? Yes, most people are. Most people are, when a cop pulls over, they do something, and I've been on the street where I've told cops off when they were assaulting people. I've had them pull guns on me before, even for telling them off for assaulting people. Been there, done it. Yes, it is scary. It is nerve-wracking when you got these crazy lunatics pulling guns on you. Been there, done it, lived it. This is not a joke. But see, I've been through things that, you can sort of say, okay, and I've had people say, and I've been on talk shows where people have literally done this to me, and they go, well, Ed, didn't you pray to God? And I said, no, I prayed to the Great Spirit. And they go, what? And, I know it, it's like I pray to the Great Spirit. Oh, you didn't pray to God? No. Great Spirit gives life. If I didn't pray to the Great Spirit, I wouldn't be here. That's the way I look at it. God gives privileges. That's the way I look at the structure of the Bible. It's the way we interpret things. And you understand interpreting is like a judge, a lawyer, an attorney. They interpret things for personal financial gain. Now, I'm putting some new IRS stuff up on my wall, seeing I can do it. Hopefully it goes up on my walls. But I want you to comprehend, this is dealing with Social Security and the IRS, knowing your lawful and legal rights. David and I have actually filed that, and by the way, thank you, Dave. Dave is basically retiring now, going off on his deal that After his stroke has taken quite a bit out of him from his stroke, so we wish David Lee Buse all the best and still healing, still recovering for the trauma he's gone through. So we do wish him the best on that, and we can't argue with him because he went through a hell of a thing. When you have a stroke or a heart attack, it is traumatic. I know. I've had heart attacks, literally. I've had heart surgeries. So, that's the other point with people going to the Bible. Women don't want a guy who's had heart surgeries. Women don't want a guy who stands up for his rights so long as that he's not paying the way. I live in reality. I don't live in fantasy, folks. I listen to that, oh, you'll find a woman, oh, yeah, right. I live in reality. I don't go by the religious point of views. It doesn't work that way because the women, they want somebody that's able to go do certain activities that some I cannot do, some I can do. So I'm still blocked from posting, so I'm posting this on my wall so you can read the tax structure. But if you don't sit there and start claiming your bloodline and owning you, and that's what I'm saying. Read the paperwork, the filings that I have up there. Me and Dave has the filings that we actually served. Literally served on the, what is that called? The corners. We asked them to actually prove if we were dead or alive by their administrative rules. They freaked out. They freaked out when we filed our paperwork. So that's the point. And yeah, people go, well, they never responded back to me. Okay, now you respond to a summary judgment to the courts. You have to respond to the summary judgment of the courts. People don't realize it's your responsibility. The courts are foreign agents that are not there to work for you. And if you allow that to happen, where you're allowing them to control you and do what you want for yourself, that's how they're getting away with this structure. They're claiming your assets. They're claiming your children because you didn't claim your bloodline. So when you register your child with the state, they're claiming your bloodline. And you want to clarify, it's your bloodline. You own you. If you're not claiming you own you, you're saying that anybody could take your body and own it. That's like what I preach on abortion, and everybody jumps on my case with that one. And a woman doesn't have a right to her body, nor do you. It's that simple. The Bible says this. The Bible is supposed to be the woman is my slave. Excuse me. The woman is not your slave. The Bible doesn't give you rights to overstand a woman to claim her body as your ownership. That means the woman could claim your body as her ownership. And I'll tell you, it's very interesting because if you assault a woman, sometimes men don't wake up the next day. And I appreciate the coroners on the way they write some of those things the way they do because they know the difference. But when you're in the community and people know in the area what's happened, justice was served. And that's the point. Justice was served. See, we got to start living more in reality. It's like Bush Sr., former head of CIA, grandson of Preston, that funded the British government and the German war to take away your rights and your privileges that we're living today in Nazism. Like, what does the media say in 911? You see a crime, report it. If you feel something, I love it when they say that in the mainstream TV. If you feel something that somebody did, call and report them. Isn't that exactly what they did in Nazi Germany? No difference. Exactly what they did in Nazi Germany. Supposedly we went and fought the war, and then you do research and you find out they say we never won the war. It was a truce, a treaty. Well, in a sense, we did win the war because we stopped killing each other. You know, we weren't sitting there being indoctrinized like we were until the last few years, and they couldn't sit there and take away your rights, but they could sure go through Disney and TV and program you through the TV set, and that way you become so compliant through the TV, mentally compliant. You don't argue with them, you don't question anything, you just do what you're told. That brings me back to the flag, where everybody's kneeling at the flag. Okay, oh, they're disrespecting the flag. Well, isn't kneeling worshiping? Think about it. If you go to church, don't you kneel? Isn't that worshiping? So they're worshiping the flag? It's not the gold fringe flag they're worshiping. So these are things to step out of the movie. Watch the production. Quit getting wrapped up in the media so they got us fighting and arguing over tidbits. You know, when I do the conversation on religion coming up, I got a couple of people I'm looking forward to participate, because we've had many conversations, and that's the point. With the Constitution, we're supposed to respect each other's point of view or facts, you know, in history. But the point is those facts and histories, most of that, 99%, came from a foreign country, a foreign island. Except for the ones that came here and invaded. Like this one lady on the internet, I went back and forth on structures, and she's like, you know, I put up the structure when the Indians and, you know, gave the pastors and the nuns gave the natives Bibles to pray for the men and women that were murdering them with poison blankets, shooting them in the head, destroying their villages. And they give them the Bible, go pray to the God, go pray to your master, that we kill you, and pray for our forgiveness. That's exactly what they're asking you to do, pray for their forgiveness. Feel like that should be hung with a cable. Because I don't believe a rope with some things, because if a rope breaks, it says that if a rope breaks, you can't hang the man the second time, or woman. That means the Great Spirit, or your God, stepped in and said he was innocent. Yeah, that's in real history, going back in real history. And that's the one thing that people do not get that point. They don't get the point of reality, and that's the point that we're supposed to be living in reality. So when we go through these processes that we see that are frustrating and that we do not comprehend, that's where we have to work with each other. Like I want to try to get these things on the website. The major thing on the new.org and trackers is setting up a group setup, so when somebody's got a case, a legitimate case, we autograph it, because we can autograph anything if we believe in it. It's our butt on the line. If we sit there and commit fraud, we're liable. So it does take a stern man or woman to stand up for others. Yes, that is a fact. But if we don't start doing it, we ain't going to have a future, and that means lawful or legal. The FEMA camps are real. They're concentration camps no different than Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. Every FEMA camp has a minimum of 2 guillotines in them right now today. Those were purchased going back in 1987, 88, 87. They purchased 80,000 guillotines. True fact. Type it in. Watch the Senate hearings in the Capitol. They're there. They're proven. That's the point. What I tell you is facts. I've been there, done the research, watched the videos. Some of them I personally attended those public hearings myself. So when you personally attend these things, you see it with your own eyes. And I've had people, oh, you're crazy, Ed. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a liar. And then I'll say, okay. And then I produce videotapes of me speaking at the Capitol. And this is what I said at the Capitol, which I plan on getting some of these starting to be up on the video, up on new.org and trackers. But you can type in Ed Johnston, City of Toledo, Senator Roblin, what was that, court jester? Bruce McCrum. Where I'm going, hey, they kidnapped me, held me for ransom, and tried to murder me, and he's telling me, oh, well, murder is not what they say it is, Ed. Don't you comprehend that? Murder is not what they say. Murder is homicide, and homicide is legal. There's that British legal terminology. You know, murder is legal, so long as it's done by the corporation. So that's what I'm saying. When people get murdered or go through these things, we, the people, have to file on these structures. We, the people, have to sit there and put these people in check. It's our responsibility as the landowner of this land. And yes, we do own this land because we're supposed to have the rights to hunt and fish without paying the king. We're supposed to have the right to go travel through the forest, and if we want to camp there for a bit of time, to do it. We're not supposed to be run off. I mean, I haven't been hunting in Eastern Oregon in, oh God, it's been probably 12 years, 13 years. But we used to go up to a thing called the Inkwell, or what was that? One spot was Inkwell up there that we used to go up there on the mountain. And all of a sudden the forest department put a flag or wood boxes there. The forest department owns this land now, and you have to pay a $3 day use fee. We were up there, and the guy comes in. I told him where he could shove it. And I've done that on several of these things when they put these day use fees in. And I camped there. I told him, hey, prove it. Prove this thing. You know, and then I want your supervisor's name. And they're like, well, what do you want? Why do you want this information? What are you going to do with that information if I give you the information? Oh, I just want to file criminal charges on them, and I'm going to indict you on it. And then all of a sudden they leave the area. I never see them until after once I leave, I never see them. So, you know, I've been there at the campgrounds in certain places where they've gone and harassed others there. Literally gone and harassed others there. Never came to my campsite. I was at one of the public campsites here in my area. And everybody was getting roused on day use fees and all this stuff, camping fees. And I was out there and I had something hanging in the camp. And people were going, how come you're not bothering him? And he didn't even say a word. He didn't say a word. He just went, you know. So once you sit there and you don't argue with these men and women, you know, and let them go harass those who don't want to be responsible, who don't want to be educated. If they don't want to be responsible and educated, that is their liability, their responsibility. You know, you can always bring a horse to water, but you can't make a horse drink the water. That is the one point that people have to comprehend this reality. And once people do, we can get a lot further then. And the one thing I do want to recommend to everybody out there is that when you're saving videos and stuff from Facebook, please make sure you save them on a flash drive or stuff, because they're starting to delete things in the back way. This is a fact. They are starting to delete stuff off of it in the back way. So it's saved, you can bring it up. I was fortunate that I saved certain videos that I saved that were deleted, and I was able to get them back out there. Now, they're going out there because they don't want the people to know the truth. They want you to be as stupid and dumbed down as the rest of the men and women. And that is the point, that you don't want to be stupid. You don't want to be dumb. You want to be smarter than the average bear. Because like I always say, when you go bear hunting, you got to know what you're hunting with when you go bear hunting. It's like when you go fishing, you know, and the state of Oregon, finally, I guess they outlawed WD-40. I don't care what they did on that one. Doesn't bother me. I'll still use the legal bait, or lawful bait. Well, they call it legal, but it's lawful bait because it's made out of fish oil. Okay, and then the state of Oregon's got rivers and streams that says that if you don't buy their fishing equipment, their lures, their flies, you can't fish in that stream because you can't use a worm. You can't cut off a piece of a tree limb or a branch of a leaf off a tree and cut it into like a grasshopper or something where it looks like a foreign, a natural bait in the river or stream. You know, they don't want you to use that. They want you to everything to be commercialized to be paid for under the king of the administrative rules. And once you start realizing that that's the severity of what's going on, because we are living in this reality of severity. So once you start comprehending to the severity of what's going on, then we can start there and do that. And please, like I said, read my stuff I put up there. Use it for what you want. I mean, you know, I'm passing it out. I'm not asking for personal financial gain like some people do out of this. You know, there's a lot of people that sit there and say, if you don't sit there and do this or that, I'm not going to give you the information. I put the stuff up. I want to make sure you know it. You know, but if you could help with the grace of your kindness, you know, for a water electricity bill or something like that, so it keeps the structure going, or we keep the channel up and all this stuff maneuvering so that way we all keep working with one another, then this way we do have something we could save. And that is the point, that, you know, we've got to do this stuff to protect ourselves, our children. It really is protecting our children. Because if you don't protect your bloodline, who else is going to protect you, your blood, if you don't protect it? You have to be knowledgeable how to protect your bloodline. And once you become knowledgeable how to protect your bloodline, then you save you, yourself, and your blood. So those are the things that you have to protect your bloodline on. So anyhow, anybody got any questions or would like to throw something else into the mix here, or we go in a different direction? It don't bother me. So throw it out there, but I think if nobody wants to speak up, I think that we'll end up wrapping tonight's show up. And like I said, throw some ideas to me. You know, we got a lot of research out there. I got a lot of stuff out there that is publicly known, and if it's something that you could use, I don't have an issue with you using things like that. It's up to you to use it. You know, you're a responsible adult, so you to be a responsible adult.
All participants are muted. Q&A session is over.
So, all right. So I guess I'll end it tonight. Appreciate it. May the Great Spirit walk with you and bless you. May Mother feed you. May the Creator bring you rainwater. That way you live and survive with your children and your heritage and your bloodline. Like I said, it's up to you to protect your bloodline. If people keep going on, Ed, what's a bloodline? Why should I protect my bloodline? Well, it's your body, your structure. If you don't protect you, how do you expect anybody to protect anything? That's the main point. Think about these things. You know, and like it's a good point of view to think about it, like with the guys who are kneeling down with the structure, and I love this point of view, that they are bowing, literally bowing to our flag. Why is that disrespectful? Don't you kneel and worship yourself? So just crazy thoughts, just a thing to think about, just one of those things to think about. So anyhow, may the Great Spirit bless you, and I'll end with that.
Well, I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. And I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. And I used to, this is true. I work in the summer and I go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little old teacher. Mr. Laswell was his name. Mr. Laswell. He says, he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester. and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance: under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
You have been listening to the disclaimers by Edward Johnston, and our best wishes go out to David Lee Buse in his retirement, I guess you could call it. Hopefully he gets better soon. And it is currently October 23rd, 2017 at 7:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you very much for listening and watching, and have a good night.